reviews are in.
You have to go by where... Look.
Here's what Trump's own people are saying about him. He's a f***ing moron. Rex Tillerson, Trump's Secretary of State.
I believe that we won't win! I believe that we won't win!
Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th President of the United States.
America spoke and we made history.
Can you feel my body shaking? Like my last breath taking. This world's my drug. This world's my drug. Can you feel the earth quaking? Feel my burdens breaking. This world's my drug. Now I can't get enough.
You marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted.
Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America and may God protect our church.
Now I can't get enough.
Now if I lose, can you imagine?
Joe Biden has been awarded the state of Vermont, New Jersey, Massachusetts, in D.C.
Joe Biden is going to win the state of Colorado and its 9 electoral votes.
If I lose, what do I do?
Maryland,
Delaware,
New Mexico is going to go to Joe Biden. New York, Connecticut, New Hampshire.
Illinois has spoken.
California, Oregon.
will win in Washington.
We're going to have a red wave.
Rhode Island.
3 additional electoral votes with Maine.
In the state of Virginia, it is going to Joe Biden.
But if I lose Minnesota, I'm never coming back. I don't care.
Joe Biden will win the state of Minnesota.
Nebraska, too, has been awarded to Joe Biden.
Hello, Wisconsin. We win this state. You know what? It's over.
CBS News is projecting Wisconsin to flip for Joe Biden.
We want the same result as we had 4 years ago from Michigan, right?
Joe Biden has won Michigan.
It can't happen. It simply can't happen. It's not fair.
I shouldn't even be here. They say I have Georgia made.
You are looking at results from the state of Georgia, and Joe Biden leads Donald Trump.
Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't know.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th President of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to make this projection because CNN projects Biden wins Pennsylvania, pulling off a rare defeat of a sitting commander-in-chief.
In 2016, Donald Trump won Michigan by 10,700 votes. It was the closest race in Michigan presidential history. As prescribed in the Constitution, the Michigan presidential electors voted to give the state's electoral votes to Donald Trump. In 2020, Joe Biden won Michigan by 153,000 votes. It was not a close race. But now Donald Trump is attempting to steal the election by demanding that Michigan presidential electors vote for him. It's illegal and un-American. Trump has summoned Republican Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey and House Speaker Lee Chatfield to meet at the White House. His goal? Demand the Michigan legislature throw out the election results and appoint presidential electors loyal to Donald Trump. Tens of thousands of Michiganders have died defending the democracy that Donald Trump now tries to overthrow. Nothing like this has happened in American history. The Republican Party of Michigan must decide if it is loyal to America and our Constitution or to Donald Trump. All America is watching. The world is watching. What will Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey and House Speaker Lee Chatfield do? Will they go down in history as good citizens who did their duty, or traitors who attempted a failed coup? Donald Trump or America? Voters chose America. Now Michigan Republicans must do the same.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I am a man more sinned against than sinning. It would be easy to imagine those words coming out of the mouth of our own mad king, Donald Trump, as he stalks the halls of the White House in a rage, a petulant tantrum over losing the election in a landslide to Joe Biden, muttering to himself about treason and screaming specious allegations about fraud. But those are not the words of Trump. That is William Shakespeare's King Lear, because that is where we've arrived. But Trump's mad king is far more insidious, as he remains holed up in the White House like an end-stage dictator, refusing to concede, and frankly, to just go away, dissolving into unreality while the Republican Party remains silent. And at this point, it's hard to argue with lifelong Republicans like Stuart Stevens, who are calling it sedition. Nearly 80 million Americans have done something that for all of Trump's 74 years, no one has ever done. They told him no. And now, to extricate ourselves from this nightmare and to begin undoing the damage that he's caused and the mass death he has unleashed, and to begin beating back the coronavirus, we just need one Republican, just one, to also tell him no. And they won't do it. They just join him in abetting his refusal to admit defeat, and they watch as he inflicts that madness upon us, upon the American people, threatening to take the country down with him. He's not attending coronavirus task force meetings. He's brushing off the 250,000 Americans who are dead on his watch. Instead, tweeting insane conspiracy theories so egregious that Chris Krebs, the man he just fired for speaking the truth about election security, had to clarify that election-related servers were not recently seized in Europe by the U.S. Army. Because Trump is surrounded, pardon my language, by lunatics and sycophants like Rudy Giuliani, who tried to make that very claim today at a so-called news conference with hair dye running down his cheeks in a presentation that went from terrifying to ridiculous to the theater of the absurd, full of claims of fraud without presenting a speck of evidence, just a bizarre stew of buzzwords and fear-mongering about a global conspiracy against Trump.
George Soros, Antifa,
Hugo Chavez, the Clinton Foundation.
Fake news headlines.
Did you all watch My Cousin Vinny? The nice lady who said she saw, and then he says to her, how many fingers do I got up?
Never mind the fact that one of those sycophants that he's relying on to make that claim, Jenna Ellis, called him an idiot back in 2016 and claimed his supporters don't care about facts or logic. But it's not even funny, actually. It's horrifying. The fact that they are now floating conspiracy theories at a national level because this man cannot handle losing an election. And the all-out assault on our democracy is getting even worse. Trump has now summoned 2 Michigan Republican lawmakers to the White House in yet another Don Quixote joust to try and overturn the election that he lost. Meanwhile, the Washington Post reports that the goal is just to delay a final count long enough to cast doubt on Biden's decisive victory. Adding that Giuliani has also told Trump and associates that his ambition is to pressure GOP lawmakers and officials across the political map to stall the vote certification in an effort to have Republican lawmakers pick electors and disrupt the Electoral College. While another senior Trump administration official told NBC News that those close to the president, and frankly, the president, understand that the legal challenges are futile. While the AP notes that the goal is what we've all known all along, to just sow chaos. Today, at least some Republicans dropped the charade. 5 Republican governors participated in an event with President-elect Biden, who summed up the pathetic nature of Trump's refusal to concede.
An incredible irresponsibility, incredibly damaging messages being sent to the rest of the world about how democracy functions. It sends a horrible message about who we are as a country.
President-elect Joe Biden has now received more than 79 million votes. That's 10 million more than the previous record set by President Barack Obama in 2008. And yet, Donald Trump continues to behave like an itinerant dictator, refusing to accept that the voters have spoken, erroneously declaring victory bulldozing over our democracy and hunkering down in the White House, refusing to relinquish the reins of government or to even admit that he's been fired by the American people. In other words, Trump is no longer an autocrat in the making. He's already there. Because declaring victory in an election that one has lost, an election that has zero evidence of fraud, that is what autocrats do. Trump's focus is on his power and his ego, and perhaps on that orange jumpsuit that may be waiting once he leaves office. His focus is nowhere near his duty to protect the American people from a raging pandemic, which has now taken more than 251,000 lives. And behind every strong man is his supine party, the fixers and the kingmakers and the thugs who enable him. Trumpian mascots like Mitch McConnell, William Barr, and Lindsey Graham. Seen here, fist-bumping Vice President-elect Kamala Harris on the Senate floor, despite his claims of voter fraud in the election and his suspicion of votes cast in blue cities where the black people live. It's why you're seeing secretaries of state in Georgia and Arizona receiving death threats for overseeing elections that did not serve Trump. And now electors are getting sued for doing their sworn duty. The Trump campaign filed a lawsuit challenging Nevada's election results, including targeting a presidential elector who happens to be a homeless veteran. This is what we typically see in banana republics and mafia states. But here we are, seeing it unfurl in a country that used to pride itself as a beacon of democracy, where now a U.S. president can casually fire an official who pointed out the truth about the absence of election fraud, where he can stack every corner of government with lackeys who will do his bidding, from the Supreme Court to the Defense Department to the General Services Administration, where the one official who can hand over the keys to the transitioning president-elect is refusing to do so, with sources telling CNN that she is basing her decision on what she sees as the precedent set by the 2000 election, where there was not a clear winner for more than a month. Each day that the Republican Party does not condemn this behavior is another day the party normalizes anti-democratic actions, actions that will get further baked into our government and our institutions and our belief systems. And if these schemes don't succeed for Trump, they will one day for someone else. A person Adam Serwer of The Atlantic describes as the next racist demagogue who may not be as clownish or as incompetent. Joining me now is former CIA Director John Brennan, author of Undaunted, My Fight Against America's Enemies at Home and Abroad, former Obama White House political director and Obama's U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Patrick Gaspard, and Maya Wiley, New York City mayoral candidate and former assistant U.S. attorney. Thank you all for being here. And Mr. Brennan, I want to go to you on this first. Karen Attia wrote a brilliant piece that I hope everyone got a chance to read in this morning's Washington Post. And she wrote how Western media would cover the U.S. election if it happened in another country. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. The United States, the former British colony, already rocked this year by ethnic conflict and mass protests over extrajudicial killings by police, may finally have a new leader after weeks of political turmoil following a disputed presidential election. Trump, however, is refusing to leave power, and there are fears that the fractured nation might be pushed over the edge, destabilizing the Western Hemisphere. That is how it would sound if we were covering an election in a foreign country, but now we are that country. What do you make of this dissent?
Well, obviously, what Donald Trump is engaged in is the type of behavior that we've seen in many authoritarian countries around the globe, where individuals try to retain power by all means necessary. And Donald Trump, I think, has demonstrated time and time again that he's not going to adhere to not only the norms and standards that are expected in the office of the presidency, but also the requirements that really have the United States national security hang in the balance. The fact that he's acting as a spoiled juvenile, and that's an insult to spoiled juveniles, quite frankly, that he is not facilitating the transfer of power of the executive branch to Joe Biden and his incoming administration, I think is outrageous. Because whether we're dealing with COVID or whether we're dealing with international issues, that transition, which has been honored by every president, certainly during my career, and has allowed the incoming administration to be able to get up to speed quickly on these very, very challenging issues, this is something that must happen. And the fact that the members of the Republican Party are still allowing Donald Trump to continue with this tantrum, I think, is despicable.
Yeah, and Patrick, you and I share both family connections to the Congo and connections via family to South Africa, where, of course, you were ambassador. And I've been saying to my team a lot that, what Donald Trump is doing is Mobutuism, right? It is something that we saw with the Nationalist Party in South Africa from the 1940s until they were finally toppled and Nelson Mandela became president and was released from prison in 1990. I mean, this is what we've seen in these other countries, and yet we are the kind of country that maybe the Carter Center needed to oversee our election.
Joy, thanks for having me on. I served with John Brennan, and he does not get that heated about anything in public. He keeps his cool. So it gives you a sense of the extent of the crisis that we find ourselves in right now. You're absolutely right. This is the kind of behavior that we see from authoritarians in places and instances that we condemn. The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, recently put out statements of concerns about violence and clashes following the elections in Belarus and in Tanzania. 2 years ago, the Trump administration was making all kinds of declarations about the corruption, the fraud, and the challenges in transition of power in the DRC. So you're right that traditionally the United States is the broker of election integrity in places all around the world, and it's astonishing to see this being played out here in the U.S. But I have to say, Joy, there isn't a single thing that Donald Trump is doing right now that any of us could not have anticipated. Those of us who invested in planning scenarios about this expected this. The problem isn't Donald Trump. The problem is the Republican leadership in the Senate, in the House, in states where they have authority over election outcomes. They're not doing what some extraordinary secretaries of states are doing, calling out the lies, calling out the damage and the danger.
This is Olbermann versus Trump, and I'm not Trump. Twitter must ban him today, right now, permanently. Ban Trump from Twitter for life. The last 3 days, people are not going to stand for having this election stolen from them. We won't let a rigged election steal our country. Trying to steal this election, we won't let them. Coupled with his praise of violence against his political opponents, these are direct stochastic calls for the violent overthrow of the democratically elected new government of the United States. Any other Twitter account would have already been permanently suspended. Its owners would have already been investigated by the FBI for violation of 18 U.S. Code 2385, advocating overthrow of government. The prison term is 20 years. Trump's only other routes to a coup have now closed. The Recount Defense Fund is a money scam. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs reiterated the troops are loyal not to Trump but to the Constitution. Trump has lost all his lawsuits but thinks it's because Rudy Giuliani wasn't running them. Rudy Giuliani, who, as the Atlanta tweeter Alex Cole wrote, would likely take Trump's case all the way to the Supreme Courtyard by Marriott. Ludicrous as this sounds, all Trump has left is this: a coup d'eTWEET. From here on Twitter, Trump can lie, cheat, steal, suspend reality, distribute falsified video, reverse the meaning of quotes, state a delusion as fact, incite anger, incite stochastic terrorism. And even as reality closes off his other microscopic chances to destroy this country, Twitter gives him a bottomless pit of filth to throw against the wall. Ban Trump from Twitter for life. Trump would take his snowflake ass somewhere else, but this free megaphone the size of planet Earth would be shut off. His ability to undermine democracy, undermine America itself, his ability to undermine reality itself would end. That infinitesimal chance that his coup would succeed would end. For Donald Trump has not merely descended into the darkest of tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. Donald Trump is the conspiracy theory. He is the tinfoil hat. And he is right now on the toilet, preparing to take his next tweet. Ban Trump from Twitter for life. A full report on my YouTube channel.
Washington is full of Republicans with big egos and bigger ambitions. Remember them: Rubio, Cruz, Hawley, Cotton, Lee, Haley. Soon they'll all be running for president. They're planning for it, even now. They'll tell you they're brave, strong, principled, conservative. But the reality is right in front of you. They're weak, spineless, cowardly, corrupt, shaking in fear of a mean tweet. Traitors to the ideas and ideals of the country. When America needed them to stand tall for a peaceful transition of power, they sided with the loser. When called to end abuses, they shrugged. When called to lead, they cowered. When called to speak the truth, they lied. Call them whatever you like, but don't call them leaders.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Are you a law school graduate looking to work for a big law firm? Are you interested in sedition and overthrowing democracy in the United States? Well, do we have the place for you? Jones Day. At Jones Day, we represent Donald Trump in trying to undermine the United States elections. Don't you want a great work environment for you and your family? Just imagine getting to work with the entire Trump family. Rudy Giuliani, Stephen Miller, Don Jr., Eric and Ivanka, Dan Bongino, and Sean Hannity. So join us at Jones Day, where every day can be a MAGA day and InfoWars can be yours. Joe Biden won, people. Please stop this.
Kelly Loeffler did not grow up in Georgia. She did not attend high school or college in Georgia. Nope. Kelly Loeffler moved to Georgia to marry her wealthy husband, who bought the New York Stock Exchange. And Kelly Loeffler used that wealth to buy her Senate seat, a seat she was never elected to. Kelly Loeffler was sent to Washington to help millionaires and billionaires get richer, like she did. And she has watched without care or concern as Georgia has gotten sicker and poorer. It's time to tell Kelly Loeffler, Georgia is not for sale. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.
One senator in particular irks me. A Senator Kelly Loeffler, not elected, but appointed just a couple months ago.
Records show Loeffler and her husband, whose company owns the U.S. Stock Exchange, sold stock valued between $1.3 and $3.1 million.
Kelly Loeffler bought and sold stock shortly after a classified briefing on the virus.
They knew the market was going to tank, and they sold based on that inside information.
Some of the holdings she shed were in energy, automotive, retail, and airlines.
Look, Reid, it's not just what she sold, but it's actually what she bought. She bought things like Amazon, Citrix Systems, company that obviously was going to do well during a shutdown.
While still reassuring citizens that the U.S. was prepared.
We have Americans across the country who have seen their 401ks plummet. Were you trading on inside information about what was coming?
Folks, this woman is knee-deep in the swamp, and she just got there.
Meet Emily Murphy, a political hack, a traitor, appointed by Donald Trump to lead the General Services Administration, the GSA. What has Emily done? Rooftop sex parties. Emily was A-OK with alcohol ragers and rooftop sex parties at taxpayer expense at her government office. Swamp monster. Emily Murphy worked with Trump to prevent the FBI from moving its D.C. office space to help the Trump Hotel across the street. She tried covering it up to Congress.
Was the president or anyone at the White House involved in those discussions?
Sir, to my knowledge, this direction that we got came from the FBI.
We now know, in fact, that the president ordered this decision, which has the effect of benefiting his hotel and his own financial bottom line.
Sedition. And now Emily Murphy created chaos by unlawfully refusing to sign paperwork to permit a smooth transition to President-elect Biden, placing our lives at risk.
What do you see as the biggest threat to your transition right now, given President Trump's unprecedented attempt to obstruct and delay a smooth transfer of power?
More people may die.
Emily Murphy is a national disgrace. Tell Emily Murphy to sign the transition papers now. Midas Touch is responsible for the content of this advertising.